All right. Popo, now you know what it is. We are back again. This is Buddha Squad podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for choosing us. We are right back. I'm sorry, guys. We're supposed to say but yeah, you know, got your boy Focus King. We're back like never gone. Back us, back, come Kokotro. We are right here and honored to have Mr. Aubrey in the building. He'll be blessing us with the knowledge of how to become a writer and etc. etc. We'll be asking questions. I don't want to give you expectations. How are you, Mr. Aubrey?
Very well, how are you, my good sir?
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
We are honored to have you and thank you for accepting our invite. We just had that interest to know a lot about you, to know a lot about your work that you've been pushing. So most importantly, the first question that I like to ask is to ask about your background and how you got into this writing, mechanism. Because as black and as we grew up, Ekasi, or maybe any township, it's very difficult for us, to get into this thing or get exposed to literature and reading.
No.
So yes, you can just start by just letting us know what you are doing, what's that you're doing as a whole in a nutshell, and so that we can start with the first question.
I'm Aubrey Mogase, born and bred in Mamelodi. I can say that I have been a community man for my entire life. The township that I know very much or very well is Mamelodi. And ke bile student sa strata.
Okay.
During the struggles 70s, unfortunately, I had to endure a difficult spell, in a sense that my father was a municipal police.
Okay.
So in 1976, he actually joined the masses. He took off his uniform and joined the struggle against the introduction of the apartheid language as a medium of instruction. Unfortunately, he was caught. He was tortured. He spent 3 years in ICU at the then Garankuwa Hospital, which is today George Mukhari Hospital. I grew up without a father, in an actual fact. And when he came out in 1980, he was a changed man. He lost his memory because of the tortures. He endured a lot of brutality meted out by the security police. So I was taught by fathers out in the streets. And I really appreciate, the upbringing, the advices, the education itself. And I was part of the struggle. We were involved, in COSAS politics. And I was also a member of the United Democratic Front, which was UDF back then. I became a member of numerous organizations, and we actually pushed apartheid and brought it down to its knees in the late 80s. Because we adopted slogans that said, liberation now, education later.
Okay.
And we faced police with all their machinery, their guns, and their might, with only a stone and a petrol bomb. And indeed, liberation leaders were released, liberation organizations were unbanned, and we ushered in a new system in South Africa where everyone would actually be treated equal. And we, as Mamelodi, were the first community to discuss a green paper which was tabled in Parliament post 1994 on the introduction of community policing forums. We interpreted a bill and implemented the first community policing forum in South Africa before it was enacted and became an act of law. And we helped other communities to establish, CPFs. People don't know that history. We are the trailblazers. We were the foundation of what has now become community policing forums. I belonged to organizations of the disabled people. We were helping in terms of them getting better services, access to facilities, and also advocating policies that would cater for the needs of the disabled people. And I am the founder of Mums FM. Today it's called Mums Radio. We struggled for 15 years to get the license for Mamelodi. And towards 1998, there was an application for frequency 98, which was allocated to Area 20. Area 20, which demarcated the entire Pretoria East as a licensing area. And we moved into that space and applied. And we were awarded the license, and unfortunately it had to affect the station that was running and operating then, which was, and it's still, Impact Radio. It's a religious community-based radio. And we were then taken to court. ICASA was the first respondent. We, as Mums FM, were the second respondents. And as you know, the law did not actually favor Mamelodi then. But we accepted, and the recommendation was that ICASA should actually look for a new frequency for us. And that's when now Centec was brought in and to unbundle all the frequency modules that were available. And then in 2010, that's when our license was awarded. 2010. That's when now we started operating at the Mogase Max City. That is how it was called back then, Mogase Max City. And I'm a road engineer by profession. And I left that profession in 2012. And I started doing research of where the township comes from, Mamelodi. How was it like in the past? And how it developed to be, this community that it is today. And I started writing my first book in 2017, published 2018, and my book is called Mamelodi Reflections of a Lifetime. Mamelodi Reflections of a Lifetime, it's a pictorial book. When I say Mamelodi is the first industrialized area, I have a picture of the Eerste Fabrieken, where today we have Eerste Fabriek train station.
Okay.
That was the first distillery that operated in this area. And Mamelodi was known as Gamelodi. But when settlers approached and reached this area, they changed the name to Vlakfontein.
Mm-hmm.
So, the name Gamelodi, you must know that the early inhabitants, these were Stone Age people. It was around 1400. And it was Amandebele. And they were housed at an area called Hidali. Today, Hidali is the cemetery where we bury our loved ones. So, Kgosi Mmusi and the Mandebele Amanala were the first people to have been recorded to have resided in the east of Pretoria, which is Hidali today. And other tribes came in and they lived in harmony. The Tswanas, the Pedis, and that is how the tribes, get to interact with one another and all that. And you must know that back then there were no banks. Every man's bank was his cows. Your kraal was your major bank. So, Mamelodi got to develop in that particular sense. But the name Vlakfontein was actually ushered in during the 1800s. Because this area was surveyed in 1854, before Pretoria could be established. And the name Vlakfontein means a place that is watered. So there was plenty water in Mamelodi. People were growing their own crops, their own food. Their herds or domesticated animals had plentiful of grazing land. Mamelodi was rich. And all the birds that inhabited Mamelodi were actually the one reason why this place was called Gamelodi, because of these birds whistling. Beautiful, beautiful sounds. And Vlakfontein came to be ushered in. And South Africa really needs to applaud one man. Ndate Sefako Makhatu. Sefako Makhatu became a resident coming from the Leboa area, which is Petersburg. He resided at Riverside. Riverside, which is today Jan Niemann Park, or others as they refer to as East Lake. Mm-hmm. That's Riverside. Okay. That's where Miriam Makeba comes from. So, Sefako Makhatu was an astute leader and a man who loved education. He enrolled for theology in England. And he went to study in England. This is the man who actually captured that You know, the Afrikaners and the English were discussing the running of the country, South Africa.
Okay.
And he came back to warn all the chiefs, all the kings, and various leaders in society that we are now in danger, our land is going. And that actually propelled, you know, the formations of unions and, you know, pressure groups and the Ananda Pesfago Makatu will form a union of his, Yama teacher, in a Tata, T-A-T-A. So Ndade Sefako was the first black man to refuse to move away or out of the paved areas, Kamutoropo, because of that was the preserve of whites only. So Sefako would walk on the walkways and he would actually, you know, bump white people out of the pavement. But all black people moved, you know, on the gravel or on top of the soil. So having to grasp this information, I felt that it is important that these things need to be preserved in books, because books stay forever. They are like music. So I then questioned myself, what were my elders doing, not recording this history? My worry is one. We have people who were learned and, you know, left us with nothing. So we are scrambling. So having to write, I thought it is important because most of the time we think that our stories don't matter. And that's a problem. That gave me a challenge to say, but what is it that I would basically do in contributing towards having to build, you know, our own black nation? What more can one actually do than to write? And, you know, writing is not about focusing on history or talking of, you know, only heritage. There are many, 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 many topics. In an actual fact, anything can be written of. I started a movement where I needed to create 3 communities in Mangalore. And all those plans fell flat. I wanted to establish a photographic community. Because most of the times, or often, we see ourselves taking selfies than having to capture moments that would become historical.
Okay.
And if you can go and check the work of Ernest Cole, you would see and understand what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But Ernest was capturing the sufferings of black people in townships and villages by the apartheid government. But having to take pictures should actually be a picture that has meaning.
Okay.
Because we would actually need pictorial books. Books that actually tell us the stories of our different sections in Mamelodi.
Mm.
I needed to create a library community where we need to encourage people to love reading.
That's true.
Reading is important because there's treasures in books. In one of my social media posts, I posted that one needs to open a book as you require no password. And that was picked up by a journalist from Record, our local newspaper. And he said, "Can you write something? I need to publish this." And indeed, I did that. And it was published. We definitely need to know the benefits of reading. Reading enhances your knowledge. And today we are seeing a sharp rise in terms of mental illness. For an example, we can take a disease like dementia. And when you go into researches, you are told that dementia can be slowed down by reading because you engage the mind.
True.
So, as I'm saying, that reading enhances your knowledge. We focus more on television, and television doesn't give us everything. I'm not saying TV is bad, and I wouldn't even advocate for the fall of TV. But what I'm saying is people need to, dedicate an hour or so in reading. Because I believe that, if we teach the young ones the love of reading, they would grow up to be responsible people. Ke utlwile botlhoko ba re mme o mongwe na khieletse ngwana wa 4 years yena ile o tlala dikarata bosigo. Ngwana wa 4 years o tshwere ke tlala a ira di-noodles a chuma stofo. So there's many dangers in that. As parents, we definitely need to go back to basics and seek a bright future for our children. I've given my background and also maybe it's an element question in that.
No, it's nice hearing you speak, Yabo, because it teaches us a lot, So now the question that I have is with regards to the vision, with the fighting of apartheid by that time, and with the picture and how Mamelodi is now. Do you feel like there was evolution or change in between those years, or do you see Mamelodi as a picture that it has fallen, or there is still more work to do about to get it like to the standard that you pictured the time you were fighting for liberation?
Yeah, there are challenges, serious challenges that actually came with the evolution of the struggle. One of the areas that I would actually pick is mainly on the defiance. Government, and when I say government, I refer to the previous government, the Nationalist Party government, did not want to allocate land for people. So we then adopted a campaign that went to identify a land and occupy it. Then we said, occupy the unoccupied land. That is how now the area of Stanza Bopake came came to be. Because Mamelodi was built up from west, east, and the far east was only, a bush. Mamelodi comprises of 3 parts or 3 sections. It's part 1, Mamelodi West, part 2, Mamelodi East, part 3, Mamelodi Far East. And when I say Far East, I refer to what we normally call Padco Depot. That was the boundary, Mamelodi, because of coming this way. It's a Kalanyo.
Okay.
Yeah, Nero Kalanyo. No one about Ben Mari, maybe the the festivals back then. So, occupation of unused land brought shanty town, which many referred to as Mandela Village. Then we said, no, we have got our local hero. Who was our secretary? Stanza Maishabupa, who vanished, and up until today, no one knows his grave. So we then forced government to name this area as Stanza Bupa. So the challenges are vast. There's no more community vigilance like it used to happen in the past. There is disunity amongst community members. There's proliferation of alcohol, drugs, and many factors. And these are challenges that are perpetuating. There is no sign of abating. And it creates future challenges. Because if we are not actually going to stop and look back where we have erred, honestly speaking, we are headed in the wrong direction. And that's the challenge that we definitely need to look at. We need to retrospect. The struggle was about emancipation. The struggle was about better life. The struggle was about quality education. So that we also can be part of the global world and compete globally. And the education system hasn't changed much. We are seeing, drop in terms of, the quality of education. We no longer have school assemblies in the morning. We no longer have sports days at school. So what are these children going to do? What is it that would actually assist in shaping, these children? We have been knocking at the department's door to introduce, games, to introduce systems that would engage, children going forward. And also as parents, we are not playing our part in terms of our children's education. It's another challenge. So we are in a predicament, and we definitely need to send the messages. We should never cease or tire in terms of trying to speak to people and educate if there's a need for education. So I've spoken about 2 communities, which was the photographic community, the library community, and also we need an environmental community. Our environment is polluted, and we are actually polluting the environment. We have streams, river in Mamelodi. We no longer have fish in this river. All that you find is polluted streams, things that one can't mention. You know, it's very sad. What is wrong with us?
Okay. Ish. Yeah. Yeah. This interview is. I think it's gonna take long because we even haven't, get into your craft. But now I'm interested into learning where we come from as Mamelodi, and where we are going, and actually the vision that our fighters, because that's very important, because we are the very vision careers of the next future. So I think we can just now indulge a little bit in this conversation, and then going forward, I would just ask about the books and stuff, because it saddens me that we cannot compete with other areas, or maybe take we have a lot of talent, we have a lot of artists coming out from our township, but then they don't get recognized because of the things that we are known for. Or just like as you have mentioned, the drugs, as you've mentioned, the school assemblies, they no longer take part into building up the future of the kids, your sports like rugby's, and they don't form competitions like the olden days. Remember, we had like on Fridays the school marathons. They would say we compete that and that and that. Our choirs, they no longer go into competition. I understand. So as you have mentioned now that you have been trying to knock on the doors of the departments. Now I'm feeling like this thing, we somehow, because there is a question that I love asking, that if you mentor someone, it's like you are leaving a mark, or you're leaving a purpose to be fulfilled. So as you've mentioned, you said you try to build your libraries, you try to build many programs that would uplift, or where we would get our memories, or just to know about maybe the museum for about Mamelodi, the stories, because there is no one who have catered us with that much information, and we lack information. That's why maybe we are less participating when it comes to changing ourselves. And because as you've mentioned that there are true heroes that have fallen, and they've left nothing for us to read and to understand. So I think if we can maybe try and maybe go into the question to say what's that, um, as our hero, what's that you would wish us to do, as this new generation, you understand, to take serious, maybe when it comes to building other things, and how would one go and fetch that Mamelodi identity, and what ways can we use, apart from reading, creating programs that will enhance our future and give us a better image national.
Yeah. We should start at home.
Okay.
We have our libraries
Yeah.
in our homes. We have got our grandfathers who were here before. And there is this saying, history repeats itself. And some of these things, we take them as talk, but we don't realize as and when we go on about our lives that, truly they impact us. I would wish to see our young people taking interest in history. In history. And when I say history, I'm not referring to politics. I am saying history. Because history teaches us the past. And what is the past? It is now the issue area Hore, history repeats itself. So I would want our youth to take interest in learning history and understanding history. Because having to learn and understand history, you would know and understand what was.
To come.
What was. What happened. And anticipate what could become. So these are typical methods. Let me give you an example. And maybe this might not be popular with many black folks. But I want to give an example of the Afrikaner. Afrikaners are writing. They are writing. They are not playing. Their literature is so vast. And they always consult that literature to understand what happened 1800, to understand what happened during the Anglo-Boer War, to understand individuals within their history. You talk of ESCOM, you talk of ISCOR. These were industries that were built by Africans from scratch, albeit having support from government. But are we as black people writing more or enough so that as and when we depart, our children will have that literature available and to learn what is it that we did and how can they adapt in their own conditions. Like today, we are faced with many challenges. But what is it that could actually teach us coming from history that we can use and change the situation? Right now, we are seeing many youngsters in social media. But what is it that they're using it for? Are they using it to advance their lives, to mock other people, or, is it constructive or not? So it is incumbent on us to try and, just rein them in, to actually say, no, but here you are losing it. Rather focus on this particular factors. Mamelodi is rich. And let me say this. It is in the interest of others that Mamelodi does not rise. It is in the interest of others that Mamelodi does not rise up. Because Mamelodi is one powerful community. What has been adopted in South Africa and mostly, other black townships started in Mamelodi. Let me speak of the music. We had Marabi in the 40s. Coming up, there was Mbatwanga, Ngoma Usugu, and Mamelodi identified, its own unique music, which was dubbed Malombo music. Hence, we have seen the late Dr. Philip Tawani, may his soul rest in peace. The late Julian Bahula, may his soul rest in peace. And Pra A.B. Cindi, who is still alive and the only surviving member of the original Malombo Jazzman. And this actually gave Mamelodi a new meaning, to say Mamelodi is the maker of jazz, because everybody who wanted to tour South Africa as a musician, upon releasing an album, first it had to be performed in Mamelodi. The Mamelodi West Community Hall. That was the venue. You speak of Woma Hotel Queens, Woma Khatini, Lady Smith, Black Mambazo, Miriam Makeba. Miriam Makeba gave her last performance in Mamelodi before she went into exile. People don't know that. So, these things, if we can just learn and try and get, a group of youngsters, get them to be interested. Because Renara Shashayana ke Mogase. Refana dipolelo tse ding tse eleng hore ha di re itse ko pele. But it is very much important that speaking to one would actually impact, unlike having not to be speaking to anyone. So, when we were struggling for a better life, for better facilities. Because even our children today, if they actually want to play rugby, they must go and look for a rugby club outside of Mamelodi. Cricket. There was, mini cricket facilities that were built in various schools. And everything just died down. And yet, I want to see my children making it in life. But that would actually come at a cost, because I must ferry them to where those facilities are. It's a challenge. But all hope is not lost. We still can, if we have facilities and don't vandalize them. Because we also play part in terms of destroying what belongs to us. So, we are still continuing with the journey. And as I was saying, we will not tire to try and help where, it's possible.
Okay, lovely. So now you said before you were fighting for liberation before education. So I want you to at least head us into the meaning and maybe somehow define or distinguish the two. Why was fighting for liberation before education was important at that time?
We were naive.
Okay.
We were led to believe that attaining freedom would mean we are going to get better education. But to be honest, apartheid was brutal. We went through a lot. Our movements were restricted. We could not enjoy our country. So, this was a cautious slogan. Because our leaders in jail, our leaders in exile, were advocating, and parents also, were advocating for us to remain in class, fight whilst studying. Then we defied them also. To say, we are not going to be in class because that would mean obedience. We are not going to comply with the system. We are going to show the system, our parents and our leaders, that we can attain freedom. And it should be now. Hence, freedom now, education later. That is how we we came up with it. And it has actually worked. The only time where we succeeded in defying both our parents and our leaders was 1985. The entire country stood still. In 1985, there were no final examinations. No final examinations. It was one campaign that no one is writing and we did not write. Come 1986, the March date for final examinations was set for mostly matriculants. They had now to make way for, those who would be coming from junior classes. Our fight was to ensure that South Africa becomes, a country of milk and honey. But in 1986, one guy from Mozambique warned us that whatever that we were doing would actually regret. We did not understand. We just pushed. We went with what was the flow. And indeed, we were flowing. So the new government, when it came in, it actually wanted to build a responsible nation. People who would actually take care of themselves. People who would be respectable enough to be human enough to accommodate others and live in harmony amongst ourselves. So the challenges are enormous, and we still believe that it will take time, but we must help where it's necessary. Yeah.
So, in this era and generation, do you think the priority is still the same? It's still liberation before education, or it's education before liberation, or we still moving with the same slogan even now?
Times have changed. Today's time is of education, no matter what. We are in the fourth industrial revolution.
True.
And having to be in the fourth industrial revolution comes with added challenges. And an added challenge is that people are losing their jobs. Internet is taking over. There are multiple platforms where people showcase their talents and whatever products that they have. And speaking of products, I actually want to add that for IR, in as much as I see it, but we are in an entrepreneurial era.
Okay, that's true.
Our youth are not having the same challenges that we used to have in the past. Today's children can become millionaires while still at school. Because we have seen the emergence of content creators. We have youngsters who have actually developed their own brands, which are making it big. To me, the only brands is a Galaxy Boy, and that is encouraging. So there is no way no longer people today would actually speak of liberation. Yeah, now it should actually be about reading, educating, learning non-stop. Because there are many opportunities for anyone. Somebody was asking me, I think it was 2 weeks back, Aubrey, can I write a book about Mamelodi? I said, yes, you can. And you are at liberty. He said, no, but you wrote the book. I said, no, what I've covered. You would come up with something that I would have left out. You would come up with something that I wasn't aware of. No one has the monopoly of the Mamelodi history. And what is history? History is a work of fiction because there's many narratives, there's many stories. Right now, you and I are seated in this studio. We don't know what's happening out in the street. We don't know what's happening at that corner. You see, so it is like, research. If you are a researcher, don't limit yourself. Also seek other research community members so that you can enrich, your scope. So these are typical methods that can actually enhance an entrepreneurial spirit in each and every one of us. We have people who are retired and could actually add value in other sectors. And they can become, entrepreneurs. We have consultants. We have, teachers who could actually do extra classes, for an example. So there's a lot. But I believe that every man is a book.
True. Nice. I love that. So, thank you for the information. Because it is somehow ignite, some sort of a spirit of, growth and, indulging much more into our history. Because the way I see and our views on history, it's much different because now whatever that we are saying is just, assumptions. It's not literally what has gone on, I understand, in the past. So you've mentioned that you are the founder of Moms Radio and you had challenges in licensing it. And even Impact, you said Impact Radio, the religious one. So I want to know, to say, what was the motive behind, creating the Moms Radio platform? Was it because of the frequency matter, or it was because of you had your own, intentions, you had your own vision, you had your own. So I want you to let us in that sense to say, my initial plan to create Moms Radio was this, but because of it just led to this point.
Moms FM was a creation of ideas.
Okay.
Mamelodi, as I said, that it is rich. We are rich in all aspects, whether it be politics, religion, music, or arts, entertainment. We are everywhere. That is why others have resorted to saying Mamelodi is a country.
True.
So the vision behind the Mamelodi radio was to bring out these stories, was to educate people about ourselves. Who are we? Where do we come from? And where should we basically go as people? And we are told that democracy is about, people participating and all that and all that. But you know what is my meaning of democracy?
Okay.
Do as you wish. Or let me put it in Afrikaans. Doen soos jy wil. Dira ka mokgwa o nyaka.
Okay.
That's my interpretation. Because we don't respect one another. Right, yeah. Then king and Marana, we are in a democracy. Understand? So, Mams FM was to educate. In as much as we needed to entertain. But my focus was more on education. I remember talking to my staff. I said, guys, I want us to bore people. Information. Araba boring. But who offended the way is or no. Understand? So, Mams FM was mainly established for community building.
Okay. So now does it serve like the purpose as you have wished, like at the current stage?
I am not sure because let me just give you one scenario.
Okay.
And I'm not bashing Mams FM. Mams FM is my creation and I love that station. My problem is the frequency. I don't catch it. Where I stay, so I can. The only time that I listen to Mams radio is when I'm in a car. But the example that I want to give was when the guys were actually talking, they were being interviewed. I think they were talking issues of heritage and exhibitions. They were given 15 minutes. It was a mid-morning show. And you must understand that radio has, its prime and, programs that are, dedicated to women, to children, and all that. This I found to be an insult that such an important subject of discussion, Mamelodi heritage, can be given to a 9 to 12 slot, midday. I mean, this needs, a prime slot in the evening, where people are back from work and they're settled and they can actually even throw in their questions, ideas, and suggestions. But after the 15 minutes interview, the guys were let go of the studio. When they stepped out of the studio, both female presenters were discussing clothes. No follow-up to what they have been doing. And, about the interview itself. Then that actually gave me a doubt of the quality that comes out. Should I challenge, the station management on the quality of presenting and how knowledgeable people are? Because I advocated for research before one goes on air. Come prepared. Know what is it that you're dealing with, like the whole week you must prepare. Today I'm going to deal with gender-based violence issues, then child-headed homes, impacts of HIV and AIDS. You understand? Like we had on Mondays. Mondays we had in the evening the crime night. Police should come and give us, the weekend stats and what really happened in terms of crime. Tuesday was dedicated to politics. Wednesday was dedicated to legal matters. whether it be estates, whether it be divorces, whether it be, inheritances and all those type of. It was a legal Wednesday. Then Thursday was councillors' night, where ward councillors would be invited to come and speak on the challenges in their wards and all that. And and people interacted with their various councillors. So information was flowing. It was like participatory value. But I think it can still be refined and much more could be done. The hiring of staff also plays part, because even though you can have good policies, but you definitely need to follow them through. I know that Tlakate Peli is still there. He's now one of the veterans of the station. He's a very good presenter and a man who engages community in their own language, and that actually speaks to who Mamelodi is, because we have our own dialect, we have our own lingo, and it should actually be something that everyone else should embrace and understand that station is a station with a Mamelodi lingo.
True. Okay. Yeah, because the question why I asked you like precisely to say, do you feel as like they are serving the initial purpose is that creating an organization as a person solely, so what's the impact you wanna do or serve people with, or see change in a way. So you being a founder, it's somehow giving you less of interaction with the organization, because now you are outside. So whatever that I will present to you as like, I need us to put this on the platform, you actually somehow get to be disconnected with the actual plan instead of enhancing from that plan to say, no, before we can go that way, are we still having these kind of platforms? Before we can put this, are we still serving the community the way? Do we still have those channels on Thursday, on Monday, and how can we include them, even if we can just decrease the slots times, but at least they should be there so that we can be known of our stories, you understand? So that's why I ask, maybe because of a lot of organizations, that's why they rebranded, that's why they change names, because of the focus changes over and over. But instead, what organizations can do, or programs, they can have alternatives on how, you understand, to put new things, on how to connect with people. If you can check the TV, if you can check television, they still play generations, but they have adapted to now times. You understand? They still serve the purpose. We still have our news, but they haven't changed that. They haven't changed that authenticity of what it should bring to us.
True.
So that's what I'm saying. With a lot of us, we feel left behind when there is nothing more entertaining. But it is very important to just change the slot time but still have the same message being spread out. You understand, on your adverts, to maybe talk about certain things, cover certain issues in a way that can make people indulge. Still have your counselors in this time and this time. Because if you don't have control, it might change. It might change until you figure out in the later stage. You understand? So that's why I asked that question, because a vision has to be set under circumstances that benefit or don't benefit. You understand? Because at the end of the day, people will follow.
Yes.
You will follow in any way. You understand? So yeah. for now, you can tell us about your Facebook. What was the challenge writing your Facebook before? Because I know you went through stages, writer's block. I understand first you were interested because of you had your information, you're equipped about the history, and now it's the time for action.
Yeah.
To put down the pen on the paper, and then what were the let's start with the challenges before anything else that the writers or you faced personally.
Yeah, my first challenge was time.
Okay.
My first challenge was time because of I did not have time.
Okay.
But it was something that I was dedicated to do.
Okay.
And I was very much happy having to sit down and
Finally.
yes, and writing the first sentence.
Okay.
Because that sentence led to a paragraph, and a paragraph to a page, and a page to a book.
Okay.
So that is something that I cherish very much. That's my first book. Mamelodi Reflections of a Lifetime. I actually wanted to start with that book in depicting the township that I come from.